Hello, my name is Maria. I want to share a story with you today. It is very close to my heart. Please listen carefully until the end, because it has a message that can change the way you look at people and life. It is about trust, pain, and hope. It is about how sometimes it feels hard to trust men, but also about how kindness and love can still be found in this world. So, let me begin. It was a cold evening. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange as the sun slowly disappeared behind the hills. The air was crisp, and people were rushing home. I was driving my taxi, as I do every day. My daughters were waiting for me at home. Their smiling faces kept me going. I was tired, but I had to keep working. The bills didn't care if I was tired. I stopped near a park where a man was waving for a taxi. He looked around 35. Wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His face looked tired, and his eyes seemed heavy. He got into the taxi and softly said, "To Green Street, please." I nodded and started driving. The car was silent. Only the sound of the engine and the wind passing by filled the space. After a few minutes, the man asked softly, "Do you like driving?" I glanced at him through the mirror. His eyes looked sad, but his voice was kind. "Yes," I said with a small smile. "I do it for my daughters. I need to keep working." He smiled faintly. "You're strong," he whispered. I was not sure if he was speaking to me or just thinking out loud. I didn't ask. I simply kept driving. When we reached Green Street, he handed me a few notes. He looked at me and said, "Thank you. Have a good night." I watched him walk away. There was something about his eyes. They held a story. I didn't know what it was, but I could feel it. The night continued. I picked up a few more passengers. Some were cheerful, some were tired, and some were in a hurry. Just an ordinary night. It was almost midnight when I decided to head home. I was about to turn the corner when I saw a woman sitting on the sidewalk. She was holding her knees close to her chest, shivering. Her clothes were torn, and her face was bruised. I slowed down and parked nearby. My heart ached. I got out of the taxi and walked toward her. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. Her eyes were filled with fear. She shook her head. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered, her voice trembling. I felt a lump in my throat. "I won't. I promise. Let me help you." She stared at me for a moment, then slowly nodded. I gave her my jacket and helped her into the taxi. She was freezing. I turned on the heater and asked gently, "Do you want me to take you to the hospital or somewhere safe?" She shook her head quickly. "No, no police, no hospital, please." I didn't push her. I asked if she was hungry. She nodded softly. I drove to a small diner that was still open. I bought her some soup and bread. As she ate, she slowly began to speak. "My name is Lily," she whispered. "I ran away from my husband tonight." Her voice cracked as she spoke. She stared at the table, unable to look at me. He used to be so kind. He made me feel safe. But he changed. Slowly, he became angry, controlling. At first, it was just words. But then, her voice broke. She covered her face with her trembling hands. I placed my hand over hers. "You're safe now," I said softly. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "I have nowhere to go." I felt my chest tighten. "Do you have any family?" I asked. She shook her head. "My mother died last year. I have no one." Her voice was so broken, so fragile. I could feel the years of pain in every word she spoke. I knew I couldn't leave her. I took her to a small women's shelter I knew. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. When we arrived, the woman who ran the shelter, Mrs. Thompson, came out. She was kind, with gentle eyes and a warm smile. She hugged Lily and guided her inside. Before leaving, Lily turned to me. Her eyes, once filled with fear, were now soft with gratitude. She took my hand and held it tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved me." I squeezed her hand and smiled as I drove home. My heart was heavy. I couldn't stop thinking about Lily, about how she once trusted the man she loved, but was now left broken. For the next few weeks, I kept visiting her at the shelter. She was healing slowly. Her bruises faded, and her eyes became brighter. She even smiled sometimes. One evening, I brought my daughters to meet her. They instantly adored her. They sat by her side, holding her hands and making her laugh. Seeing her smile made me tear up. It reminded me that even the most broken hearts could find light again. One day, as I was about to leave the shelter, I saw a familiar face standing by the door. It was the man from Green Street, the one I had driven weeks ago. I was surprised. I walked over to him. "Hello," I said softly. "Do you remember me?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, I do." He looked nervous. His hands were shaking slightly. I came here to find my sister," he said, his voice breaking. I stared at him. My heart began to race. "Lily?" I asked softly. He nodded. Tears filled his eyes. "She ran away. I was afraid I would never find her." I could hardly speak. I guided him inside. When Lily saw him, she froze. Her eyes widened. She clutched my hand. "Lily," he whispered. "It's me. It's James." Her body trembled. He knelt before her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you earlier," he choked. "I should have come sooner." Lily stared at him, her eyes filled with confusion and pain. You didn't know?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I didn't. I was away. I came back and found out. I've been looking for you ever since." Lily's lips quivered. She slowly reached out and touched his face. "James," she whispered, and then She broke down in his arms. I stood there, tears running down my face. The pain, the loss, and the reunion, it was all so overwhelming. That night, as I drove home, I thought about the kindness I had received from strangers, and the cruelty from those meant to love us. But I also thought about hope, the small flickers of light in the darkest of nights. There are men who hurt, but there are also men who heal. And sometimes, when we least expect it, love finds its way back. If you listen to this story till the end, I thank you with all my heart. Please like and subscribe for more inspiring and heartfelt stories. It means so much to me and helps me keep sharing these stories that touch the soul. Thank you for being here. As the seasons changed, so did I. Grief no longer sat so heavily on my chest. It became softer, gentler, like a familiar friend who walked beside me instead of weighing me down. I started to find joy in the small things again. The sound of laughter in the park, the smell of rain-soaked earth, the warmth of the sun on my skin. But there were still days when I missed her so much that it hurt. On those days, I would sit by my window with the music box in my lap, slowly winding it and letting the delicate melody fill the room. I would close my eyes and picture Grandma's smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she laughed, the soft hum of her voice as she sang to herself while folding laundry. One chilly autumn afternoon, I decided to visit her grave. The sky was a soft, pale gray, and the wind carried the scent of fallen leaves. I held a small bouquet of white daisies, her favorite flowers, in my hands. As I walked through the cemetery, the leaves crunched softly beneath my feet. When I reached her resting place, I knelt down and placed the daisies beside her name. I traced the carved letters slowly with my fingertips. "Hi, Grandma," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I miss you." The wind stirred gently around me, brushing against my cheek like a soft caress. I took a shaky breath and pulled the locket from beneath my sweater. I opened it, staring at the tiny black and white photograph once again. "You know," I said softly, brushing my thumb over the picture, "I've been doing okay. I'm still going to the park. I'm still dancing in the rain sometimes, just like you used to." I smiled faintly. "I even learned how to make your vegetable stew. It's not as good as yours, but I'm getting there." I could feel my throat tightening, but I kept talking, my voice gentle and steady. "I met a man at the park the other day," I continued. "He reminded me of Grandpa. The way he fed the birds, so patient and kind. You would have liked him." "Grandma." I took a deep breath, feeling the cool autumn air fill my lungs. "I still hear you. You know," I whispered. "In the wind, in the rain, in the music." I placed my hand over the locket, pressing it close to my heart. "And I still feel you, right here." For a moment, I sat quietly, letting the gentle rustling of the leaves fill the silence. I closed my eyes and imagined Grandma sitting beside me, holding my hand. I could almost feel the warmth of her touch as I stood up to leave. I glanced around and noticed something that made me pause. Just a few feet away, a little girl with golden hair was kneeling by another grave. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. She held a small bouquet of wildflowers in her tiny hands. I watched as she gently placed the flowers on the grave. She didn't speak. She simply stared at the stone for a long moment, then closed her eyes and pressed her small hands together in a soft, clumsy prayer. Something about her fragile presence touched me deeply. I slowly walked over, unsure if I should say anything. But before I could decide, she turned and looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Are you visiting someone too?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Yes," I said gently. "My grandma." The little girl's eyes grew sad, and she glanced back at the grave in front of her. "My mommy is here," she whispered. My chest tightened. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. She was so young, far too young to carry the weight of grief. I knelt down beside her. "She must have loved you very much," I said softly. The girl nodded. "She used to sing me lullabies. I still sing them when I miss her. Sometimes I think she can hear me." I smiled faintly. "I think she can." The little girl reached into the pocket of her jacket and pulled out a tiny, red ribbon. It was frayed at the edges and slightly faded, but she clutched it tightly in her small hand. "This was from her hair," she said quietly. "I keep it with me so I don't forget her." I stared at the ribbon, my eyes stinging with tears. I slowly opened my own hand, revealing the silver locket. "I keep this with me for the same reason," I whispered. Her eyes widened slightly as she stared at the tiny photograph inside the locket. She reached out with her small fingers and gently touched the picture. "She looks kind," the little girl said softly. I smiled. She was. For a moment, we sat there together in the quiet, two strangers bound by the shared language of loss. But somehow, in that moment, neither of us felt alone. After a while, the little girl's father called out to her from a short distance away. She stood up slowly and looked at me with her big, round eyes. "Do you think my mommy is still watching me?" she asked softly. I smiled through the tears I could no longer hold back. I gently touched her hand and whispered, "I know she is." The little girl's face lit up with a soft, hopeful smile. She gave me a small wave, then ran back to her father. I watched as they walked away, and my heart felt full aching but full. As I turned back toward Grandma's grave, I reached for the locket again, holding it tightly. "Thank you, Grandma," I whispered, "for teaching me that love never fades." And as I walked back through the cemetery, the leaves swirling gently around me, I realized something beautiful. The love we carry never leaves us. It lingers in the smallest moments, the touch of a hand, the memory of a smile, the warmth of a stranger's kindness. And perhaps the greatest gift we can give is to pass that love on, to hold someone else's hand when they feel lost, to share a piece of our heart with someone whose heart is breaking, to remind them that they are never truly alone. That day, I carried Grandma's love with me, but I also carried the little girl's hope, the quiet, gentle hope of a child who still sang lullabies for her mother, believing she could somehow still hear them. And in that belief, I found my own strength. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. If this touched you in any way, please subscribe and leave a like. Your support means the world and helps me share more stories that remind us of the beauty, kindness, and love that exists in the world. And remember, love never truly leaves us. It simply changes shape, slipping into the wind, the stars, and the hearts of those we hold dear.